All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for National NSSLHA's Office Hours on Student Leadership. Basically, National NSSLHA's Office Hours is a live event series designed to bring students and professionals together to talk about relevant and important topics to current students. My name is Ivy Wynn, and I serve as National NSSLHA's president, and I'm also a second-year SLP student at the University of Washington. And now I'd like to introduce our other panelists for the night, beginning with my two fellow Executive Council members. Carolyn, do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks, Ivy. My name is Carolyn Sinak, and I serve as National NSSLHA's Vice President for Student State Officers in the Central Region. I am a second-year SLP student at Maryville University in St. Louis, and I will go ahead and introduce our third Executive Council member here tonight, and that is Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. And hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Kennedy Wilkins, and I serve as National NSSLHA's Vice President for Programming for SLP. And I'm currently a second-year SLP grad student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. We hope that you all have a great night and you're able to get a lot out of this. And with that, I would like to introduce our two Student State Officer representatives here tonight, Jess and Kinsley. Jess?
Thanks, Kennedy. My name is Jess Tyker, and I serve as Student State Officer, or SSO, for Pennsylvania. And I'm a senior at Commonwealth University in Bloomsburg, and I'd like to hand it over to Kinsley.
Hey y'all, my name is Kinsley. I serve as the SSO for Alabama, and I'm a second-year audiology student at Auburn University. We also have an IDEA work group member here tonight. Janella, would you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Kensley. My name is Janella Velasco, and I'm a member of the IDEA work group. I'm also a second-year SLP student at the University of Southern California.
All right, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. So the opportunities for student leadership are vast and can be pursued at the local, state, and national levels. The student leaders on our panel here tonight have various leadership experiences and share perspectives on each of those levels that I mentioned. So let's get started with an overview of the three types of leadership positions at National NSSLHA and the specific roles that are open within those positions. So the Executive Council is a 2-year commitment, and it represents the CSD student body by developing the programs and policies of National NSSLHA, including the strategic plan, and serving on various ASHA, or American Speech Language Hearing Association, committees to provide the student perspective to those committees. The open positions this year are president-elect, which would be an SLP student, and this role helps plan EC meetings, does some PR work, and also is the group chair or a chairperson for the IDEA work group. There's vice president for government affairs and public policy.
Oh, yeah. And so this position develops student advocacy activities, promotes advocacy educations, and it coordinates legislative and advocacy opportunities for the National NSSLHA Executive Council. There's also the role for vice president for planning, and this person monitors various operations and activities and performances of National NSSLHA to ensure compliance with strategic plan and achievement of National NSSLHA's mission, and facilitates the infusion of multicultural issues into National NSSLHA's programs.
The next role that's going to be available on the EC is going to be the Vice President for Programming for SLP, and this role encompasses both the virtual events and the convention programming with their audiology Vice President for Programming partner.
And the last two positions open are the vice president for student state officers, one in the central region and one in the southern region. And both of these positions oversee the SSOs and chapters in their respective regions and focus on chapter communications.
So there's also the role of Student State Officer, or SSO, and this position is as National NSSLHA's brand ambassadors. So our role is to disseminate accurate and timely information about National NSSLHA and build relationships with chapters, members, and state speech language hearing associations.
All SSO positions are available for each year, and our goal is to have 2 SSOs from each state with 1 SLP and 1 AUD representative. Undergraduate students may serve as either an SLP or an AUD SSO, even if they plan to specialize in grad school.
And lastly, there's the IDEA work group. The IDEA work group helps National NSSLHA build a strong and diverse membership community and actively supports Goal 2 of National NSSLHA's 2024 to 2026 strategic plan. Members plan events, write blogs, create resources, and help build community with other CSD organizations. These positions are single-year terms, so up to 8 positions are open for this upcoming year of 2025 to 2026. We meet once a month and have large group work as well as subcommittee work.
And all of our leadership positions are supported by national office staff and our lovely national advisor. And many of these lovely people are here today on this call. So just know that you won't be alone, and we lean on them immensely. So now our first topic is going to be about student leadership nuts and bolts. We've just gone over the roles and responsibilities, so now we want to check on any questions that you might have about the process. And feel free to leave any comments in the chat box or raise your hand if you have any questions along the way. But to begin, we do have one question from the event registration to start. But yeah, feel free to submit any other questions in the chat. So our first question will be for everybody. What makes a good leader? Kennedy, why don't we start off with you?
Yeah, I would love to answer that question. I think it's a great place to start when thinking about the application process in general is what makes you unique and special and what you can add to the role. Personally, one of the qualities I think is really important, especially for my role and others on the EC, is just to have flexibility in the open communication. One of the first things I learned when I started my graduate school program was the phrase, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? So I think that if you break that down into small parts, that's kind of saying that you're going to be stepping out and doing things that you're not used to a lot, especially in these roles. And that's okay. You need to have grace with yourself and be able to kind of be flexible and take it as you go, one step at a time, and learn from your mistakes and use them to grow and get better while working alongside other people. So that would be the one trait that I would recommend that is really important for this role. Would anybody else like to jump in?
I'll go ahead and jump in, Kennedy. I think what you mentioned is really important. And I think for me, something that I've grown a lot in with leadership, and I think we look for in leaders, especially within National NSSLHA, is the confidence to ask questions. I think it's one thing to be a confident leader and be able to like perform your roles and duties confidently, but then to take that the next step and ask questions when they need to be asked. Sometimes that may be uncomfortable, or you may not want everyone to know that you don't have all the information, but the truth is, like, none of us will always have all of the information that we need. And so being confident to ask those questions really shows that, like, you do care about whatever leadership role you are serving in, and you want to better not only yourself in that role, but everyone else that you are working with also. So that would be my trait that I think is important as a leader.
I think I would add and emphasize this first bullet point that's on the screen right here is just knowing that every person has a different background. We all have different perspectives and experiences that contribute to the person that we are. And just knowing how you can contribute that to a team and improve the strength of the team, the perspectives, is super valuable, especially knowing, maybe you're not super extroverted, but you're really great at organizing and planning events, then that's like a great strong suit and kind of know how to play to your strengths.
Along with that, I think leadership teaches you how to be adaptable, which I think is a great trait to have. National NSSLHA has really taught me how to think outside of the box and go about meeting people and creating connections in ways that I haven't in the past. And I think that a good leader is open to change and open to being adaptable and being molded by the people around them.
I also was going to add, I think it's super important for a leader to be good at active listening and having strong communication. You're communicating with people all the time in any of these positions, whether it be people in the states or the exec board. So it's really important to actively listen to criticism or areas where you can grow and help other people also thrive.
And I'm lastly gonna add, speaking from my position, the IDEA work group, I think a good leader would be someone who can take initiative and come up with great ideas for DEI initiatives and expanding these values in National NSSLHA and within our field. So.
Okay, that's great, guys. I think that we've all kind of hit a lot of different targets, and when you think about it as a whole, we're going into the field of speech language pathology and or audiology, and so communication is one of our strongest suits here, and it's something that's really important for us to put in our back pocket when it comes to leadership. With that, we had another question, and I'm going to ask it here, and anyone can jump in if they want, but it is, what does National NSSLHA look for in a well-rounded application? Ivy and Carolyn, could you share just a little bit about the application review process?
Yeah, so I have reviewed applications for student state officer, for IDEA work group, for executive council, and I feel like the things that we really look for and that makes an applicant stand out is just seeing how passionate they are about serving their community. I think that, you know, bringing your ideas to us, what ideas do you want to bring to National NSSLHA? What change do you want to see? You know, what ideas for events or for strengthening National NSSLHA do you have? And I also feel like, you know, regardless of your involvement with National NSSLHA or with NSSLHA itself, like at your local chapter, you know, any involvement that you've had in your community, whether it be leadership opportunities in your university or in your community or volunteering, you can really kind of just showcase all the experience that you have in building your community up, and then also kind of what inclusion really means to you is something that really makes applicants stand out.
Yeah, and as Ivy was mentioning, I think really talking about those unique experiences that other people may not have. A lot of people are gaining, whether it be formal leadership experience or just like community involvement on their local campuses. But what do you have in addition to that? That might be some formal leadership positions that you've held, but it also could just be like a part-time job that you've had that has uniquely like helped you develop leadership skills that other people may not have if they didn't have that experience. So really like take time to tell us about like who you are, what do you do, what are those things that make you stand out from other people, and what have you learned from those experiences that you would take with you into whether it be National NSSLHA leadership positions or leadership positions that you're applying for outside of NSSLHA, because everyone does have those unique lived experiences that you can really speak to that have impacted like your philosophy as a leader.
Great. All right. So I did actually receive a question on this topic, but if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. The question was, what has been the biggest challenge and benefit that you all have found in your positions in NSSLHA? That's a big one. Let's see. Kennedy, did you unmute?
Yeah, I am muted. Yeah,
Okay.
I was looking at this question and I found it super interesting. And this answer may not be the most helpful, but the biggest challenge I have had is the fact that we are all across the country. And so scheduling can be really hard and difficult at times. On top of the fact that we all have very busy schedules in these roles, it can take up a lot of time depending on what you're doing from week to week. And so a challenge is just that simple organization piece, that planning, and with the flexibility that sometimes your meeting may fall through and you need to reschedule it, and that's okay, but you have to kind of have the forethought of going through your calendar and being, you know, prompt enough to say, here's available dates I have, and here's where we can go. So I would say that this probably been the biggest challenge. One of the best benefits, and I will likely talk about this later because I love connecting and meeting new people, is I have absolutely loved being on the EC and being with the other members. My role in specific has an audiology partner, and we work very closely all the time. And that's been the best benefit because it's so fascinating to kind of work in the same role with someone that's in a different side of the profession, and we have different perspectives and viewpoints, and I get to learn a lot from her, as well as everybody else that I work with on the EC team. So that's been the biggest benefit. If anybody else would like to jump in.
I can jump in. So I think the biggest benefit of being part of the IDEA work group is feeling like I have a power of voice, power of change, and I can advocate with this role. I've been able to do different initiatives for different celebration months and help amplify underrepresented voices in our students throughout the country. So I think that's been really cool and really rewarding and probably a highlight of my graduate career so far. And I think a challenge with this, however, is coming up with these initiatives that were meaningful and make sense to National NSSLHA and within our scope. And two, finding the time to work on these initiatives on top of our busy schoolwork and our busy lives. So I think time management is super important in this role and planning ahead and working with our coordinators in each of our subcommittees to get our deadlines done and get these initiatives out. If anyone else wants to go ahead.
I can contribute for my role as president, which is so if you're interested, SLP an SLP student can apply and become president-elect. And so you'll hold the role for 2 years and then become president. And essentially, like as president-elect, you're learning the ropes. And during that time, that was kind of my challenge, was like learning what kind of leader I wanted to be. You might not be like the person that, you know, was president before, and you might not be able to adapt to that same type of personality and kind of role that they had. So just finding out who I was in the scheme of National NSSLHA and how I can really just take my strengths and contribute it to the team was probably like the most challenging thing I've had to do so far. But the biggest benefit, I'd say, is just being able to connect with students from all over the country, and even like within my own cohort, and taking their suggestions and bringing it to the national level to see how that can turn into, you know, an event or like an advocacy topic. So that's been really rewarding.
Yeah, I would say for my position as VP for SSOs, and I'm sure my SSOs would kind of be able to like speak to this or resonate with this as well, that our role is like very reliant on effective communication and engagement. Those are like the biggest things that we're focusing on. And so as VP for SSOs, I'm not only trying to like make that engagement occur and be effective within my team of SSOs, but then we're trickling that down to every chapter within my region as well. And a challenge of that has been that every one of us here has a different like communication style and learning style. And we're trying to then engage many more people that all have those unique styles of communication and learning and engagement as well. So trying to cater messages and information to meet everyone in whatever media they receive it best in has been a challenge. But I think on the flip side of that, the benefit is we have learned to be so adaptive, as Kensley was mentioning, I think earlier, and that has been a skill that like will apply in every position in my life. So yes, I think formal leaders have some of these skills that you bring to the table, but also like there's so much development that occurs and skills that you can further grow as being a leader that then can apply to so many different positions in your life.
Yeah, I would just second exactly what Carolyn had been saying, that, you know, the biggest challenge is getting the information out there and engaging with our chapters, especially when there's quite a few in every state. But honestly, one of the best benefits of being an SSO is that there are so many of us. There's 2 in every state. So it really builds a great community and allows you to be able to lean on someone and get to know people in other disciplines as well, as you're serving throughout your term.
Just piggybacking off Kensley, I totally agree. It's difficult to get chapters to communicate back to us sometimes, but really putting an effort is super important. You really want the communication with everyone because it just helps you network and it helps National NSSLHA get all of the information out in a timely manner. So yeah, and I think that the greatest thing about this position is just getting to make new friends and be close with the exec board and get advice from those who are older than you. It's just been a great experience.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. And I haven't seen any new questions pop up, so again, feel free to put those in the chat if you do. All right, well, let's move on. So we're going to move on to talking about our experiences and skills. So from the registration, we saw several questions about what NSSLHA values and looks for in its leaders. And the primary question is, what qualities would make me a good candidate for an SSO or an idea workgroup position? So Carolyn, would you like to start?
Yeah, for sure. I think, as I mentioned in my last response, those like effective communication skills, and then I think it was Jessica that mentioned the active listening. Those are skills that are so important specifically for SSOs and idea work group. Listening to the different perspectives that people are going to bring to you, and being able to then communicate to people that are receiving information differently. I would say something that really like stands out as on applications for candidates for these positions is what experiences you have with those leadership skills. So I kind of mentioned this earlier, but like tell us about those unique experiences outside of the more common ones of like maybe you are helping with your sorority, or like the collaboration question a lot of people talk about, um like group projects and stuff like that. And while those do offer very beneficial skills, a lot of people have those experiences. So what experiences do you have that would set you apart? Like someone always told me, like, for job applications, and this applies to leadership applications, what can make you like stand out from the crowd that would make someone remember, like, oh, I remember reading that person's application because of this one specific experience that they talked about. So that would be my best piece of advice, is like where can you incorporate those unique experiences that showcase the skills that you have that other people may not have. Let's see, Kensley, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just add too that as an SSO, when you're going throughout it, it's really important to practice what you're preaching to your chapters, and getting involved in your own NSSLHA chapter at your university. I had the pleasure of like really diving headfirst into the chapter here at Auburn when I started my role as an SSO, to really just kind of get them back in touch and reaffiliated with National NSSLHA. So I would definitely say, the coal starts from inside of the house. So start there and work outwards, and it can definitely make things easier. Janelle, would you want to share some about the idea work group?
Yes, definitely. When I remember applying for the idea work group, I remember just kind of reflecting on what does DI, or diversity, equity, inclusion, mean to me, and how do I want to support this in my profession, in my field as a future clinician, and how can I do this with a National NSSLHA is what was going through my mind. And I believe those are similar to the essay questions that are on the application, if I'm not mistaken. So I think a good candidate for this member of an idea work group is someone who does have an interest in expanding these DEI values, not only in National NSSLHA, but just within our field as well. An interest in, I'd say, cultural competence and highlighting voices of historically under marginalized groups. And knowing, or at least willing to learn how to approach topics with humility and sensitivity, and be willing to learn more. I feel like I've learned so much from the unique perspectives of my amazing idea work group members, as well as the wonderful Alexis Redmond and Dr. Belinda Doherty. So I think this is a great position to learn more about yourself and cultural sensitivity, and how we can advocate for more of this in our field.
Thanks so much, Janella. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I just wanted to say, I think more generally for any of these roles, and Carolyn mentioned this earlier, I believe, is just having that clear passion for what you want to do and making it very evident throughout your application that you are the type of person that will advocate for your role and advocate for what your role does. I know specifically for SSOs, sometimes it's really hard to get in contact with certain chapters, and you have to be a little bit persistent, right? Get creative and out of the box and show that you really want for that rapport and that relationship. And so to be someone that's willing to go out of the way to make sure the job gets done, that's a trait that's really, really important for any of these roles.
Absolutely. And I'm probably just going to piggyback on everybody else because everyone has such valid points. And I have a unique perspective having have held a SSO position. I've been a part of the idea work group and now I'm on the executive council. And I feel like just having a distinct why. Why do you want to do this role? What do you want to do with this role? You're now having a position at the national level where you can have impact at, you know, local and national level, and to kind of like raise the voices of these students that you know and that you're experiencing. So, you know, having a clear definition for why you want this role, is going to make you a great candidate. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And now we have a second question on this topic. What advice would you give someone applying for leadership? Jess, would you mind starting this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So for starters, if you're thinking about applying for a position and you're kind of not sure if you should do it, I just say go for it. It's so worth it to put yourself out there and just demonstrate initiative. Like everyone here loves that. And I also think it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with National NSSLHA's mission, vision, core values, just so that you know that this organization that you are a part of is something that you also want to advocate for and something that you want to be a leader for. But I say just go for it. If you're on edge, just submit it and see what happens. That's what I did. And then I got it and I could not be happier. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, oh, Carolyn, you want to go? Okay. I think this kind of goes without saying, but all of us here love to connect with students and we love to talk about our roles and what we do. And so if you have any interest in our role and you feel like looking at it online, you're not quite sure what all it entails, please reach out to us, talk to us. I have talked to many students about exactly what I do, why I love it, and why I think someone else should do it. And so we will be able to give you key insight into a specific position that you're interested in. And I think that can really help kind of take your application to a new level because you have a better idea in a sense of what you're applying for.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I think there are similarities that I like seeing that question. It's a question that I've been asking people about job applications, as I'm graduating in May and like in that process. And I think something that I've heard so often that I would want to share with all of you and anyone thinking about leadership is to like make yourself stand out. I know I've mentioned like unique experiences, but truly like you don't have to shy away from talking about all of the great things that you've done because all of us here have done some incredible things. And so we want to hear about those in your applications. And when you go on and are applying for jobs and stuff, like they want to see those things because that is what makes you stand out. And that's what makes people want to have you as a part of their team. So a lot of people, I think, like being humble or like, well, I'm not gonna like show off about this, but like no, that like your applications are your moment to do that. So I would say just like be confident in sharing those things with us through your applications because they're amazing accomplishments.
Carolyn, you gave me another thought. I think that it's really important to also take what you've done in the past and show how that has shaped or curated your why and you're moving forward, what you want to do, what exactly you want to get out of a role, how you're going to succeed in it. It's really important to say, hey, listen, this is my unique perspective. X, Y, and Z happened to me, and this is how I grew from it, right? Like, this is now my initiative and my passion because of my experiences and why I would be beneficial for this role in the team.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm trying to think if I have anything else I wanted to say. I think I kind of wanted to mention something along the lines of your National NSSLHA application for leadership might have a different why than why you got into the field in general, you know? I feel like having a leadership position is really like, what do you want to do with it? What do you envision and how you're gonna, you know, make change within that role? So tell us a story about why you want to be in this role. Just kind of put that whole picture together, including what Kennedy said, what led you to want to pursue leadership specifically. Um, let's see, does anybody else have anything to add? Kensley, I think I saw you unmute briefly.
Yes. I was just going to add too that, you know, leadership we've talked about how many different forms it comes in, but it also is measured in a lot of different ways. So I know like I've been an SSO, this is my second year now, and I love being an SSO. And that don't feel like that to be a leader that you have to apply to be president-elect or that you have to apply to be on an EC. There are plenty of leaders at levels all across the state and at the country level too that, you know, like without everybody pitching in, we wouldn't be able to reach everybody. So don't feel like that you have to aspire for the highest level of leadership, because we all pitch in to help out.
I love that. We are going to move on if no one else has any other questions. I don't think I've seen any come through. Let me double check. Yeah, I think we're good. So the next topic that we are going to cover is managing leadership in school, which I think is so important to figure out how to balance NSSLHA leadership, any other leadership you're involved with our schoolwork, because ultimately, like, we are students first. That's what this whole organization is run by and who we are run for. So the question we have here is, what is your average week like as a National NSSLHA leader? So I want to hear from someone from each of the three groups. If we could have an EC member, Idea Work Group, and SSO talk on this. So Ivy, can you start us off?
Sure. Okay, so every week kind of varies, but as a general overview, I have class on Tuesdays and Fridays, so I go to those kind of all day or at night. And then I have clinic multiple times a week. And then regarding National NSSLHA, we have, you know, monthly meetings on Sundays. So that falls on X Sunday of the month. As president, I also have a presidential agenda planning meeting that happens once a month as well. So a lot of just monthly meetings that kind of fall throughout the month. I have two jobs, so I kind of do those two throughout the week. Luckily, they're like remote, so I kind of plan them into my schedule, and can work those throughout the week. So, I've been kind of balancing a lot, as you might be able to tell, but it's very doable, I have to say. Yeah, the executive council positions are very, you know, easy to weave into your schedule, I feel. I feel like all positions are. But you know, if you're worried about time commitment, send me a message. We can kind of talk about what it looks like realistically. But that's a general week of mine, and I still have time to, you know, come home to my family on the weekends. I started Pilates recently, so like I've been trying to keep good balance. And National NSSLHA has kind of like boosted my energy and my motivation to get through grad school, if anything. So yeah, who else would like to speak? Janella?
Okay, so for the ideal work group, I kind of like Ivy, I feel like my weeks would differ, but in general, our group meets once every month for about an hour. And this is where we're going to discuss previous projects that are done and kind of just successes and what we could have done better with those. And then we'll also discuss plans for future projects. So there's multiple subcommittees in the work group, and we all had chosen what kind of stands out most to us. I'm personally part of the Outreach and Awareness Subcommittee, and this is where we help create initiatives for different heritage or celebration months. So I could speak most on this subcommittee. And again, my weeks vary, just depending on what month that I'm assigned to be working on. Currently, many of us in my subcommittee, we're all working towards May initiatives, and May is very jam-packed with National Speech Language Hearing Month, Asian American Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian Heritage Month, Mental Health Awareness, Haitian Heritage. There's many things to celebrate in the month of May. So right now, I feel like everything's really busy with my clinical placement, which I drive an hour and a half to. It's terrible. But I have placement, I have class, I think about like twice a week I have class. And then I'm also, I was a part of my chapter NSSLHA, and I still help our new executive boards kind of get the learn of the ropes and transition into their new role right now. So sorry, I think I just got a question. What are the other subcommittees are there in the IDEA work group? There's the events committee, and if you have ever seen the Raw Conversations events, they do an amazing job planning Raw Conversations. There was one in February last month, and then there was one in October of last semester. So I think we try to do one every single semester. And then as well as the resources committee, they also create resources pages on our National NSSLHA page with scholarships and DEI resources that local chapters can use.
I would say that a typical week for an SSO or typical month, I would say, is we have our monthly meetings just like everybody else, where we meet with our regions. So I meet with the Southern region, and that's where everybody comes together. And then weekly, I would just say that it kind of depends on the season. How often I'm getting in touch with my chapters. Back in December, I was only getting in touch with them maybe one email for the whole month, and then a few different group me messages because it was December. They weren't really wanting to hear from me. However, like for this month, for March, is a really busy month for NSSLHA. So I have been group meeting them like crazy, probably 2 or 3 times a week, been sending multiple emails, probably once a week or so. So I would say it's definitely very attainable to be an SSO with a full grad school level of classes and clinic. So I would say that it's definitely doable as an SSO. You're just making sure you reach out and stay in touch with people. So not as many meetings as some of the other positions.
I forgot to add something, which is, Kensley, you reminded me that there are, like ebbs and flows to National NSSLHA's kind of busy schedules. And for the executive council, some of the busier times are like the beginning of the year, gearing up to go to the ASHA convention. If you're a first year, so when you're the president-elect for my position, or if you're onboarding into the executive council, you have the privilege to do or to work on and submit an ASHA proposal with your team. So that's something that you have to work on as well. And I forgot to mention that occasionally I will take on a couple of extra little projects, like, you might make a video, or you might write a blog post, or you might, you know what, I actually just met with my ASHA mentor yesterday. So just like fun little things, fun little meetings with people here and there too.
We did get a question in the chat about what the EC does in our monthly meetings, so I can kind of speak to that. They are hour-long monthly meetings, and we always get an agenda before, so we know what that meeting is going to look like. I would say the beginning is always structured the same way. So we'll do like check-ins. Everyone goes through and gives an update on their national NSSLHA stuff that's been going on over the last month, as well as just personal updates, because we are a really close team, even though we're spread out throughout the country. So we only physically get to be together at the ASHA convention, but we do a lot of just like, I don't want to say team bonding, but kind of like that through our icebreakers and personal check-ins at the beginning of every monthly meeting. So that's the first like quarter of the meeting. Then we move into kind of the like meat and potatoes of the meeting, which is really whatever needs to be done that month. So sometimes it will be discussion on some of our like goals and initiatives of the strategic plan to see how we're performing on those and what that looks like. Other months before Advocacy Day, it will be focusing more on what piece of legislative we are advocating for and how we can like educate ourselves on that and be prepared to do some advocacy calls that we get to do in the fall. I'm trying to think some other meetings. It's an update that the GAP executive council member will give to us about what their committee is doing within ASHA. So it really just depends on like what time of the year we're in, but that would be for about 20 to 30 minutes of the meeting. And then towards the end, we hear from our national office staff and national advisor. So we get to see what's really happening within the National NSSLHA organization, like within the national office staff, which is more of like the oversight, and then hearing from our national advisor as well, toward at like the last 5 to 10 minutes of our meeting. So that really then connects us into like what's going on with ASHA and how NSSLHA and ASHA are working together on whatever we're doing at the time. So every meeting looks a little bit different, but they're always going to be those hour-long monthly meetings. Yeah, and then Alexis also mentioned in the chat, there are those report outs and discussions on progress of different programs. So again, depending on the time of the year, that might be looking specifically at scholarships, some events that we're having, different awards. Like right now, Kensley mentioned chapter honors is a pretty big push within National NSSLHA because that deadline is coming up here. So that's like our main focus right now on the SSO side of things, is making sure chapters are wrapping that up. Our next question that we did have from the registration forms, I think we kind of have touched on. So if anyone has anything to add, or if you guys have any follow-up questions, please put them in the chat. But it was how we balance leadership responsibilities with school and other responsibilities. I think with the last question about what our average week looks like, we kind of all touched on that, on how we balance school as well. Does anyone on the panel, anyone have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think that Carolyn, you brought up a lot of really great points with the last question. And I do want to say I think that something that's really important to have in this role is while you will have a lot of mentors and people that are advocating for you on your behalf for you to do your job well and supporting you, you also have to have a level of self-sufficiency. And especially in our monthly meetings, a lot of the things that we talk about is what have you done over the past month? What initiatives have you followed up on? Have you contacted anybody new? What are you working on and what are you adding to your role and our team? And so I think that, a really good way that you should balance is just being organized, and whether that's keeping a sticky note on your laptop or it's using your Google Calendar to make sure that you're keeping up with all the important dates. It is really important to make sure that you are on top of things. At the beginning of our semesters, I always emailed professors that needed to know what I'm doing and why I'm doing them. And sometimes that means that you're going to have to be a little bit persistent, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, but that's just a way that you're going to be able to balance it, because at the end of the day, we are all busy and we have crazy lives. Ivy mentioned she has 2 jobs on top of being a full-time student, and that's absolutely wild. And with that comes a lot of responsibilities that are on your plate, and sometimes they're a little daunting. So it's important to both keep your agenda full in a way that you can manage it, but also taking time to rest, to take time to, dedicate towards your mental health. It's really important in these roles that you are growing it in your own being, right? We are going through a lot of life changes as we are in undergrad or grad programs, figuring out our life. This is a really important piece of the entirety of our profession, and how we can actually branch out and find who we are as clinicians and as leaders. And so I think that you should spend a lot of time trying to focus on different avenues within yourself and making sure that you are keeping on top of things. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that also and really emphasize that like NSSLHA is run, like decisions are made by students and we fully operate for students. And so there are times that being on the executive council, I was also an SSO before I joined the EC, and like there were times that school was so busy or with clinical and stuff. So like you have to delegate some things, and like advocating for yourself is so important because it is an organization that is being run across the country. So like someone on the EC doesn't know what my school and clinical schedule looks like because all of our schedules are very different. So being able to advocate for yourself and saying like, hey, can we reschedule this meeting? Or, we have bi-monthly check-ins with the national advisor. And you're going to have your ASHA mentor that you're going to meet with too if you're on the executive council. So like those meetings can be moved around, and it's okay to say like, hey, I really actually need this extra 30 minutes. And although it's only 30 minutes, like I think all of us know as students, like that could be an assignment that you could get done sometimes. So like just advocating for yourself and knowing when you need to delegate tasks, because we're all here to support each other, but people don't know what support you need if you're not reaching out and asking for that. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add about balancing school and National NSSLHA?
Yeah, I can just echo everything everyone just said. For the IDEA work group, we do have deadlines for each initiative. So say Black History Month is in February, but all of our initiatives and any postings on Instagram or the blog would be due in sometime in December. And as we know, December is very, very busy. So I think that our national office is so supportive, as well as all the other idea work group members, and just communicating that that you're busy, and if I need a deadline pushed back, everybody is very, very accommodating. I think just communicating your schedule, and if you feel like you're drowning, someone is there to lift you back up and keep your head above water. So
I love that. We have another question here. Can I participate virtually in student leadership? So if we could get one person to answer that question, that would be great.
I would say that as an SSO, you definitely can participate virtually in student leadership. Like I said, SSOs meet monthly, and that's via Zoom or Google Meetings or however it happens for everybody. And then also we just communicate with the chapters across the state, which is actually just through email or GroupMe or whatever way you find best to communicate. So unless you choose to go to ASHA or any other national conventions, it's almost actually all completely virtual. So yes, you can definitely participate virtually.
Mhm. Kennedy, did you have anything to add? I know that you unmuted at one point.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what Kinsley said. Other than on the executive council, you are required to go to the ASHA convention. We have a lot of roles and responsibilities, and especially within my role for programming with a lot of the activities that go on convention, it's a really vital that you're there in person. But other than that, our roles really are doing a lot of the bulk work online. Of course, going to state conventions and getting to connect and talk about National NSSLHA and representing them is great, but there are so many other ways, especially in the era we are with technology, that you can have just as much of an impact virtually. So I wouldn't let that stop you.
Absolutely. I don't see any other questions on this topic in the chat that have come through, so we'll go ahead and move to our next topic. That's going to specifically revolve around benefits and opportunities of being a leader. So our first question is, what are the benefits of serving as a leader? This is kind of a broad question, so panelists, you can take it whatever direction you'd like. Kensley, would you like to start us off there?
Yeah, of course. Benefits of being a leader. I mean, naturally, you get the same benefits as being a national member, which are those great like NSSLHA to ASHA conversion, the reduced convention registration, discounted materials of like different journals and things like that, which is always great. But personally, benefit wise, I would say that the best thing that I have gotten from being a leader is my confidence and personal growth. I think back to when I was first entering grad school, which is also when I first joined National NSSLHA as an SSO, and I was pretty timid in our Zooms, and I didn't like to speak up much and share what was going on. And honestly shocked to this day now that I'm sitting here as a panelist in one of the group interview things, and like I'm just shocked at how much growth that NSSLHA has like provided me. And that is really one of the best things it does, is it provides you that room to grow, and it provides you mentors to be able to teach you and really just help you in your growth, both as just a person and in your career.
I want to echo off of that, especially with the mentor piece. I mentioned earlier that one of the benefits I saw in this role was just getting to connect. And truly, I love connecting with students. I love getting to talk to people, see their perspectives about how their grad programs are. But a really good benefit, especially on being the executive council, is we have so many mentors that are both assigned to us and just kind of naturally acquired. So we have a board of directors mentor. Mine personally, I meet with her on either LinkedIn texting, or we meet on Zoom. We've met in person a few times, and she's really been such a great guidance for me, especially with looking for jobs and being able to kind of navigate through this role, especially the people in the national office too. Alexis is a great resource, and I enjoy getting to talk to her with our bi-monthly check-in meetings. And then you never know the random kind of connections and networking that you'll be able to make. I have gotten to meet and talk to so many people that are so influential in this profession just over the last 2 years, simply by having a conversation and being in the right place at the right time. And truly, a lot of that is because of my role and kind of the spaces that I've been able to access and navigate through. So it's a good consideration to keep in mind that being in one of these roles, that you are going to be constantly speaking to people, that they have power in a good way, and they are so, so beneficial in getting to kind of talk and figure out what you really want out of your role as well as your professional career.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add as far as benefits go with serving as a leader?
I can add one extra small thing. I think serving as a leader makes you learn a lot about yourself and increases confidence. I think prior to this leadership role, I had no idea what I was capable of. I didn't know the power of my voice, what ideas that I can bring to the table. And I think being in a leadership role feels so validating, especially as a student of color in this field. And it reminds me the importance of advocacy and speaking up and highlighting voices. So.
Also, just piggybacking off what everyone else said, I think it's just been so rewarding, and you get to meet so many new people in any leadership position, really, but specifically with National NSSLHA. Your name is on the website, and people can reach out to you through that. And I'm currently at the Pennsylvania Speech Hearing Association convention because someone reached out to me because they saw my name on the NSSLHA website. And it just is so rewarding because you just get to meet so many new people, and there's so many mentors in NSSLHA that you can get to meet. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone had really good little pieces about benefits on leadership, both within National NSSLHA and all of those I think can apply beyond as well. I don't know if everyone saw, but the chat came through from Alexis that we do only have a few more questions from your registration forms remaining. So please post any other questions that you guys have come up with throughout the event tonight into our chat so we can get those answered and talk about those as well. Our final topic for tonight's event is future career impacts of leadership. So briefly share what has been a highlight of your leadership experience. Everyone on the panel will share at one point, so we'll just kind of move through everybody. But Kennedy, would you like to start talking about future career impacts of leadership?
Yes, I would love to. And thinking about the highlights of my time being on the executive council and just in general with NSSLHA, both at my local chapter and being student state officer, I think of so many specific memories, and I think that goes to show that this is a really influential role and you can get a lot out of it, but that means you also got to put a lot of work into it too, right? One in specific, so for my role for VP for programming for SLP, we get to kind of serve as the student perspective on the Council for Clinical Competence and Certifications. And so because of that, I got to travel to the ASHA main headquarters last fall and be a part of conversations that were talking about grad school requirements and CFs and things that are really important in our field. And it was a great way for me to meet people, including my BOD mentor that was there in person, that are in the profession, that are doing things across the country with speech and audiology. And that was a highlight for me because it really made lasting connections and people that I feel I can call on if I need and if I really want some advice on a specific topic. So yeah, I think that would be my highlight, just being able to connect virtually and in person with so many influential leaders and mentors across the country that have the power to really help navigate you and give you solid advice in this profession while giving you tools that help you feel like you can take it one step at a time and really level yourself up.
I can go next. Thinking about my highlight, just like Kennedy, there's many, many highlights. I couldn't recommend this enough. But I think I've made so many connections and I've met other like-minded students that I would have never had been able to if it weren't for joining National NSSLHA through the Idea Work Group. I got to meet a lot of my new friends in person when I attended ASHA last year. We had a student leadership meetup, so I think that was really great to not only make new friends virtually, but also get have the opportunity to see them in person at a very cool convention like ASHA. And then just in my position, I think a highlight for me is being able to create initiatives and postings that I am extremely proud of and that students themselves can see representations of themselves. And um, I love being able to include students of color and seeing them repost the National NSSLHA Instagram post and see their moms and their friends and their cousins like repost that and see the excitement about that and just have that representation out on our page. I'm really proud of it, and I think that's a huge, huge highlight for me. So super rewarding, and I couldn't recommend it enough again.
I would say one of the biggest highlights of my experience has been really just getting our local chapter at Auburn back re-involved with National NSSLHA again. They had kind of dropped off after COVID, but getting them back in there and really being a part of the advocacy days and things like that was really rewarding. I would also say too, like the connections, just like everybody else. It's so fun how even people that you just meet via Zoom or like you see one time at the ASHA conference, then you think you see them passing by another conferences or just different places, and you can shoot them a text and be like, "Hey, was that you?" Because this really is, these are your peers and these are the people that you're going to be practicing along with as you go out into the world and become an audiologist or an SLP. So making these connections now to have friends and people that you can lean on and that you can text and be like, hey, like, look at this crazy audiogram that I saw today, or hey, what do you think that I should do with this patient, has really been great to know that that's the kind of connections that I've built and that I'll have those people to lean on throughout my entire career.
Going off what Kensley said, I totally agree. There's so many things that I love about this position, but it's definitely just making the connections and making new friends through this. You know, the fellow SSOs are in the same boat as me, and I know that they're all there to support me and provide help if needed, specifically the ones in my region. And the VP for my region has also been super supportive, and she is just always, I just know she's always in my corner, like cheering me on. And that's such a great feeling to have. And I feel like this leadership opportunity is just like a family. Like we're all there for each other. And that's really great to feel. So I think that's probably been the highlight of my journey.
And I'll kind of wrap us up here with my highlight. I think I've had involvement with NSSLHA for many years now, starting at my local chapter as a freshman. And then my senior year, I was Missouri Student State Officer. And then for grad school, moved into the Executive Council position. So truly having that experience at local, state, and national level within NSSLHA has been so rewarding and just given me skills that I will take literally for the rest of my life. I would say a highlight has been the connections that I've made among students through being an SSO, so students in my region as well as the rest of the executive council, because we're all going through the same things at the same time. And so it's like people that completely understand you, but you never would have met because they're in states so far away from you. So one of my executive council buddies, she's in New York, and so we talk all the time, and it's cool to have another speech pathology grad student that I feel so close with that is so many states away from me. That's been amazing. And the professional connections that I've made, I like still can't believe some of them, but the perk of being able to go to the ASHA convention without any charge to us personally while being on the executive council is like better than I think anyone puts weight on it for. The people that I've met there, it's like I'm almost like starstruck when I'm there because I'm like, oh my gosh, these people like wrote my textbook. And I know that like those people like are still practicing a lot of times, but it's weird to see them for the first time and be like, you're like right in front of me right now. Like I literally walk away from so many conversations and be like, I see that person on Instagram all the time, or I see Asha post about that person all the time. And I just like had some appetizers and a drink with them. That's crazy. Like that person's my mentor and they just texted me and I feel like they're a superstar. So it's like these people are just like normal people that want to interact with students because they are so passionate about us being the future of our career. And like they want to leave our careers in good hands. So they want to support us as students, and like build us up to be leaders in the field because our field needs passionate leaders. And that's never going to go away. So I think my highlight is just the professional and personal like student connections that I've made. There was a comment and question in the chat specifically about Kennedy's role as VP for programming. So Kennedy, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I would love to share more about it. And Carolyn, I think you eloquently summarized my experience being on the executive council as well. I think that it's just a good thing to keep in the back of your mind that our profession is only but so big, and some of those connections that you make just on a whim, they can take you a long way and you can keep them for the rest of your life, and they will be really good resources to have. And you never know when you're going to run into someone again, even if you only meet them for a few minutes. So being in these roles is a lot of opportunity for you to build connections within the profession. And these are people that you can lean on for the rest of the time that you're practicing or in your leadership roles. But specific to the VP for programming for SLP, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think this role is super unique because I have what I call a body double, is what Katie and I call each other, VP for programming for audiology. And essentially the two of us, we sit down at the beginning of the year, with someone from the national office, and we kind of go through what programming events we want to have virtually as well as the ones that we want to have at the convention. So a lot of the fall season is really busy because we're doing our office hours for grad school applications, for resume workshop, and then we're doing the grad school fair that's actually at convention, or sometimes, recently it's been virtually as well. And so a big part of it when you're going through these is being able to reach out to those people in the field to say, hey, we would love to have you as a panelist for this event. We think that you have a lot of great insight, and then actually running the events. So when someone asked if you can do a lot of these roles virtually, specifically for my role, a lot of what we do is online. We are connecting with people and holding webinars year round that is specific to student topics that they're interested in, right? And so some of these topics we already have picked out at the beginning of the year, but you also have the opportunity to sit and engage with students and kind of tease out what they may find it influential or beneficial to hear about. And you can take that to the national office and create your own type of event as well. Specifically, I wanted to add that this past year we did a grad student panel for SLPs, and I helped kind of curate that because I thought that it was something that would be really great to add in a programming event that students could find benefit in. And I thought that it was a great hit, or I had a great time being at it. So know that all of these roles, while we have set responsibilities, you can absolutely make it your own. And when I said earlier that this role is what you make it and you can do as little or as much as you want, I really mean that, because you have the opportunity to go outside of what exactly is in the box of what's written online and make it your own. And that's what I find so unique to being on the executive council and so special to being a part of this team. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Thanks, Kennedy. And I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any other questions that have come in. If you do have any questions about anything we've talked about tonight, please go ahead and throw them in the chat. Otherwise, Kennedy, I'll pass it on to you.
Great. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I think all of us on the panel had a great time getting to share more about our experiences, and we hope that you were able to get a lot out of this. So we hope you feel more prepared to apply for National NSSLHA leadership positions. Our panelists have generously offered to share their contact info in case you would like to follow up with them individually, and we're going to post that information in just a moment. So we're about to post two important links in the chat. One of them is going to be a quick survey so that you can give us feedback about this event so that we can make it better. And the other is a link to the applications for our leadership roles. You will see on this slide that the due dates and expected notification timeline for our open positions for this upcoming year. I want you guys to remember that you can open the application at any time because it saves as you go. So there's no need to finish it all in one session. And also, just to put a little plug, here's a look at National NSSLHA's remaining spring virtual events. Please see all of our virtual events page linked in the chat. I think that this one's going to be really good, guys, so you should give it a look. In addition, our National NSSLHA Honors Program is open right now, and one of the many benefits of being a National NSSLHA member. These honors come with recognition as well as a cash prize, and we all know we can benefit from that. So I want you to remember, if you are the class of 2025 or the class of 2026, holding a 2025 National NSSLHA membership is necessary for the NSSLHA to ASHA conversion discount. And on the behalf of National NSSLHA, we would like to thank our panelists for offering their time and their expertise tonight. If you'd like to connect with any of us on the panel, feel free to screenshot this slide. I'm sure all of us would love to give you more information and share more about what we're passionate about in these roles. This has been a wonderful discussion, and we would really appreciate your feedback, so make sure that you click the link for the survey that we put in the chat. It's only with the help of our dedicated members that the CSD community continues to thrive, and this conversation has been recorded and will be posted on National NSSLHA social media accounts if you want to give it a look back. Thank you all again for coming, and we hope that you have a great rest of your night.